The idea of central banks being a threat to civilization apparently is no longer a fringe idea. Take a look at Time magazine, asking the question, will the Federal Reserve cause the next civil war? Peter Schiff is a longtime critic of centralized economic planning and the author of How an Economy Grows and Why It Crashes. He's also the host of his own daily radio show, streaming daily at schiffradio.com. Peter, thanks for joining us. Is this exaggerated, or do you think that the riots that we have seen in Europe, particularly in France, over the efforts to raise the retirement age from 60 to 62, could happen here if the Fed keeps pumping in so much cash that the dollar loses its value?
First of all, I wish they were happening here, because that would mean the government was doing something right.
Wish they were happening.
Well, I want people protesting cuts in government spending, because we have to do it. We have to bite the bullet. I think if we wait, it's going to be worse riots because there's going to be more pain. The longer we wait to deal with reality of the situation that we're in, the more painful it's going to be when the government has to fess up and tell the public that there's no money for all the Social Security commitments or Medicare or public pensions or all the promises they've made that taxpayers can't keep.
Are we at the tip of that iceberg when the government announced just the other day, for the second time in 2 years, there would be no cost of living increase for Social Security? Stated differently, can they announce that for a third year or a fourth year before there's some pushback?
Well, that's a way of cutting Social Security benefits without mentioning that you're cutting them. And ultimately, we have to cut them, but I think we should cut them in a more strategic way, such as raising the retirement age, means testing, and not just for the future, but right now for current recipients.
Do you think that, listen, I believe, and I think you agree with me, Social Security is unconstitutional. It's nowhere justified in the Constitution. We can't stop it for people that are on it. They've planned their life expecting to receive this money, and they paid into it when they were younger and in the workforce. But do you think that we could muster the political census to stop it for those who are not yet in the workforce?
Well, you know, I disagree with that idea that we have to keep the promises, because it's impossible. Because where's the government going to get the money? The only way to get the money is to steal it from today's young people who are going to get nothing from Social Security. So just because the government embezzled all the Social Security money and it's no longer there doesn't give recipients the right to go and steal it from somebody else. We have to acknowledge it was a Ponzi scheme from day one. It was a fraud. The Social Security is no different than Bernie Madoff. And the
Except
money is
that the
gone.
government is doing it.
But it's the same thing.
Right. It absolutely is the same thing. Could Ben Bernanke cause a civil war? And if so, what would he have to do without firing a shot?
Well,
suppose he pumps $1 trillion into the economy.
Well, you know, the idea that central bankers are more dangerous than standing armies goes back to the founding fathers. I think it was a Jefferson quote, but I could be wrong.
No, you're right. You're right.
But look, we are going to have, I think, civil unrest in this country as a result of runaway inflation, and that is going to create a lot of problems. You know, when it's one thing, initially the government was worried about people going to the bank and the money not being there. What I'm worried about is the money is there, but it has no value. And that's what Ben Bernanke is on the course of doing.
Give me just a 30-second lesson in what will happen to the dollar in everyone's wallet and in everyone's bank account if Ben Bernanke artificially pumps $1 trillion into the economy by adding zeros to the accounts of member banks.
The more dollars they create, the less they're worth. You know, this is what the government wants to do. Instead of allowing real estate prices to fall, which they need to do, the government wants to make prices for everything else go up so that real estate prices don't seem expensive. This is a very dangerous game. I mean, the Fed thinks that they can get us a little bit pregnant. They think if we can just create the right amount of inflation that we're going to solve these problems. They're just going to create even bigger problems. We need to let the market work. The danger is we destroy the dollar, we win the currency war, which means our citizens lose. Normally in war, the object is to kill the enemy. In a currency war, the object is to kill your own troops.
Got it. Peter Schiff, nicely put. Thank you for